Hello again from my front porch. It is October. It's well into October, but I'm finally out here on the front porch, and I am, because it's October, I am joined with my favorite co-hosts, McCoy and Mulder. You recall McCoy because Dr. McCoy from Star Trek was nicknamed Bones. And of course Mulder because it's an alien skeleton, Mulder from the X-Files. Okay, so if you're really cool, you'd already figured that out. But for those of you who are a little cool challenged, but the reason that we're doing this episode. Oh, and also you notice my shirt. I got this. This is a birthday gift from a friend who, it's the Monkees. So obviously it's somebody who really knows me But I thought it was appropriate because this really is my first episode from the front porch out here this month, and it's kind of a October kind of fall themed colors, a lot of orange and yellow and stuff going on here. And so, but anyway, I wanted to talk about, and it's a topic that we've talked about a little bit before, perceptions. But I wanted to talk about perspective and perception, and because they're two related things. And I had some really good example of that this past weekend. I was over doing stuff with my parents. Well, actually, I went to my folks twice. I went over to Carroll on Saturday to help move some storage unit stuff, my sisters and I, and my dad was there supervising the move. We were moving from one storage unit, stuff from one storage unit in one town to another storage unit in the town where my dad lives, so he didn't have to drive out of town to go see the stuff and things. But we used the opportunity also to sort through things because it had some of my dad's stuff in their tools and machinery and equipment stuff and parts and things. I had some of my mom's stuff, had some of my grandma Ruby's stuff, had some of my Aunt Donna's stuff. So there was just a hodgepodge of things that were in there that all needed to be moved, but we sorted through it as well. And unfortunately, we had to get rid of some stuff because it had gotten damaged. There had been some moisture damage. Somebody had put the cardboard boxes, set it close to the pavement, and even though water did not get into the building itself, still, the boxes will attract moisture from the ground, and so that unfortunately happened. And little rodents, little mice had gotten into boxes that had lots of clothes and other fabric oriented things, and had just really done a number on some of that stuff, unfortunately. And so unfortunately, there were some things that had been kept that just had to go away. But in general, we were able to either move what needed to move, or to, I'll say, rehome some things. I brought a few things with me. My sisters took a few things with them. There were some other folks that are going to make use of some of the stuff that was there. It wasn't a whole lot of stuff. I don't get the wrong impression. And there wasn't really anything of high dollar value. It's more sentimental value, if you will. But still, we were able to do that. But what was interesting was talking about perception and perspective. My dad sat there in a lawn chair observing while we were doing stuff, because his stamina would wear out too quick if he was standing and actually trying to move stuff. But he sat there and he sort of governed over what went into the truck versus what was set aside for this purpose or that purpose. But basically, we had different piles for what was going where, but only the stuff that he was keeping went in the truck. And so he did a very good job, because he would sit there and we would say, well, what about this, Dad? What about these pieces? What about this stuff here? And he would be able to tell you exactly why he had it, most of the times where he got it, what the purpose for it was, how he had planned to use it. But he would go through that stuff and then he would say, but get rid of it. I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm not, like he had this security light thing, big thing that mounts outside a building that he had planned to put on a shed or the garage at home or something. And he'd been hauling that thing around for who knows how long, and he decided, you know what? Yeah, it's still a good project, but I'm not gonna get it done. I'm not. His perspective changed to say, you know what, this is still a valid thing. It still works. It could still be installed for whatever, but I now recognize my current limits. I can't do this now. And so That caused his perception of whether he needed to keep ownership of this to change. He'd been hauling it around from one storage to another, from the house to this storage building, but he made the decision, this stuff does not need to go to the new storage unit because I recognize I'm not going to make use of it. I thought I was very proud of him for that too. But it didn't just stop there. There were a couple of other things too. Like, for example, my dad had been having trouble with his telephone at home. Now, he doesn't have a landline phone anymore. He has this little box from Verizon that's basically like a cell phone base station that you then plug your regular old-fashioned phone into, because he still likes his phone that has the push buttons on it, and you pick up the handset and talk, and that's what he wants to use. But so he has a Verizon phone, but instead of a cell phone, he's got this. Well, it wasn't ringing. He was having sporadic issues of it ringing. You couldn't hear it ringing when it rang, and so he was calling up Verizon, or he was going to the Verizon store and he was chewing them out about it, and they would say they would send a reset signal and all this kind of stuff, and they were making all these, and he would call them up on the phone, and you got to understand my dad, when he gets on the phone, he's a tough guy, and he would just chew them out and swear at them and rah, 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 rah. Well, so I tried calling him to let him know I was coming again on Monday to take him to some doctor appointments, and I couldn't get him to answer the phone. So when I got there, he said, yeah, he knew I was coming, but he was surprised I hadn't called. And I said, well, I tried, but this phone, that Verizon, I need to get something else. And so that was the whole discussion. Well, so then after we were done with the appointments, I said, well, let me take a look at your phone. And I checked, and I couldn't figure out why the thing wasn't ringing. I couldn't figure out, there was no mute thing anywhere. And so just on a hunch, because again, he has got spare parts of things everywhere, on a hunch, I dug out and found an older phone similar to the one that he had plugged in. And I brought it upstairs, let's just test. Let's just test and see. Because when I picked up the phone, I could hear something falling around inside the phone. I thought, I wonder. So I swapped out the phone, and had that ringer was turned all the way up, and then I called that number, and bring, bring, and Dad was way off in the kitchen 2 rooms away. He goes, oh, I can hear that. And so what we figured out was it wasn't the Verizon box, it was his phone. And to my dad's credit, because he doesn't do this very often, he doesn't admit he's wrong very often. To his credit, he went, well, I guess all this time I was giving Verizon grief for their system not working, and it was the phone on my end. It was my phone right here. Doesn't. Whoa, what do you know? But again, perspective and perception. See, his perception was something's wrong with the Verizon, because my phone has always worked. It's the Verizon thing that's got to be the problem. But then when I was able to prove, no, it was your phone that was a problem, he accepted that, and it changed his perception, which meant his perspective shifted. Now it was no longer, oh, those people from Verizon, rah, 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 rah. It was, well, this ought to work much better. The whole different shift. And I experienced the same thing myself personally coming back home. There were a couple of different times where, actually probably more than a couple now I think about it, several times, that I was driving along and I would get, inexplicably, I kept getting stuck behind really slow drivers. And I'd be like, there was one in particular, there was this big, large, because it's in Iowa, we're in the harvest season time now, and are you guys liking the rocking here? Because I feel like we're moving. I don't rock this much when I'm just out here by myself. It must be you guys. But it's Iowa, and so it's harvest time, and so there's lots of farm implements and machinery and stuff out and around. And so I'm driving on 2-lane highway at one point behind it's really large, bulky truck. I can't see around it. It's almost like it's not a semi, but it could have been. It was a pickup truck with lots of things on it. And so I keep drifting out to pass, and I can't pass, and they're going really slow. Speed limit's 55. Granted, I prefer to go 65, but we're barely even doing 45. We're just crawling. And I'm like, what is this truck's problem? Why are they doing this? Then, all of a sudden, for no reason that I can fathom, we come to a complete stop in the middle of this 2-lane highway. And I'm like, what is going on? What are you stopping? They don't have a turn signal on. There is a road. There's a 4-lane intersection, 2 gravel roads off to the sides, but we're not close enough to it for this truck to be turning and they don't have turn signal. Why are we stopped? And then all of a sudden, I see this one of those itty bitty little cars, the itty bitty small cars, the kind of thing that if you ever got in an accident, it would just disintegrate. One of the itty bitty little hamster car things turns left across the highway slowly, and there's like this little old person in it turning onto the gravel road. And all of a sudden, my perspective changed, because now I could not see that little itty bitty hamster car up in front of this big old truck. But now I understood that the big old truck was just as frustrated as I was, because they were stuck behind hamster car with all the oncoming traffic. They weren't able to get around the little hamster car either. And so it was the hamster car that was causing trouble. I'm sitting there in my mind grumbling about what's wrong with this stupid truck in front of me, when in fact it was not the truck in front of me. He was going slow, but because he had to, because he couldn't run over a hamster car in front of us. Because once hamster car was gone, he found his gas pedal and woof, he was gone. And even when I got back up to 65, I still didn't catch up to him. So he was definitely even more frustrated than I was at the time. But my perspective changed because of my perception changed because of the perspective. My perspective was, this big truck is going slow for no reason whatsoever. Now he's stopped in the middle of the road. What is this guy's problem? When in fact it was a vehicle in front of him that I could not see that was causing these issues. So then that changed my perception. Now I no longer was thinking bad thoughts. In fact, he couldn't hear me at any point, but I did apologize as he hit his gas and took off. I said, well, sorry about that. Yeah, that stupid little hamster car was slowing us both down. You go. And then when he took off, I went, man, look at you go. So these things, the perspective and perception are so intertwined, and yet if we get one of those screwed up, it messes up the other one too. And so we always have to be on guard to make sure that we're not jumping to conclusions and we're not getting too far ahead. And I'm really guilty of this. I can overthink with the best of them. I can sit back and look at the situation and say, wow, I don't understand what's going on. Let me try to analyze it and come up with my own thoughts about this. Oh, hey, look, I can touch the floor and stop us. Yeah, I don't want you to get seasick. But we try to analyze and we try to understand, we try to rationalize, we try to take the pieces that we know and stitch them into a story that makes sense to us by plugging in other stuff we don't know but we assume. I don't know about you, but when I do that, a lot of times if I know enough, I can get really close to what's the reality, but there are other times where I'm way off. And I have to be careful, because if I jump to conclusions, I can take something completely the opposite direction of the way it was actually going. At case in point, the truck in front of me, blaming that guy for slowing me down, when in fact, he's even more upset because he wanted to go even faster than I did. So just be mindful of that. And right now, with all the political stuff going on and the immigration stuff, which I guess is kind of political, but there's so many things going on in our world right now that it's so easy to just grab onto some little nugget of stuff. Another case in point, I'm not going to unpack the whole thing here, but the story of the Des Moines school superintendent, who turned out to be not at all what he presented himself as. But man, on paper he looked good. In person he was able to schmooze with the best of them. He was that old TV show, The Pretender. That was him in real life. He was pulling this off until all of a sudden the mask was taken away, and now we all see, oh wow, he was quite the con man. But because that perception was there that he was so great, that clouded the perspective. It went the other way. And so we have to be careful about those things. Don't jump too far ahead. Or again, with the superintendent, when he got arrested, of course, then everybody's like, oh, this guy, he's being mistreated by the Trump administration, by ICE, he's being railroaded because he's black, he's being, all this kind of stuff. And it turns out none of that was actually true, because the guy himself was not honest. Nothing that he had said was truth. And that's what he ultimately got busted for. It all caught up to him eventually. But there are a lot of people that for a long time, and some even still, that want to still champion on his behalf and believe that he is the wrong victim in that, because they just grabbed onto some pieces that they wanted to hold on to and didn't fully get the big picture, so that their perspective and their perceptions were askew. Don't let that happen to you. All right, guys, I think it's plenty warm out here. Well, you're going to be out here regardless. I'm going to go in the house. I'll see y'all next time from my front porch.